All right, everybody, we are recording this. Welcome to our third weekly General Assembly update. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, if you could, please turn off your cameras, mute your microphones. We are asking that you do send questions over via the chat so that we can ask the senator those questions when he's available. Again, thank you all so much for making the transition. We changed the times of this meeting a few times to accommodate the senator's schedule. As we've mentioned before, just a few issues with the virtual session is that, things pop up at the last minute. This is to be expected, of course, during a short session. So we will get the program started. Of course, I do want to introduce Scott McGeary from Washington Gas, who is our weekly General Assembly update sponsor. Scott, if you want to take it away.
Well, thanks very much. Let me get this camera on. Yes, thank you so much, Ross. Again, my appreciation for you arranging these timely and informative programs. And what I've been calling my Washington Gas fast facts. This week I'll mention that Washington Gas paid $15,700,000 in corporate taxes in fiscal year 2019. We have 7 Virginia facilities with 941 employees in Prince William, Fairfax, and Shenandoah counties, and an annual payroll of $98,653,222. We have 132 miles of what we call mains and 45,000 services replaced in recent years, including in Prince William, for a greenhouse gas reduction total of 162,998 megatons per year. It's a pleasure to welcome Senator McPike. I have had the good experience of working with him as chief patron of 2 bills of mutual interest, finding him to be diligent, open to comments from stakeholders, and very successful in getting the legislation enacted. He has served very well in the Senate and now currently serves on the General Laws and Technology Committee, the Local Government Committee, Rehabilitation and Social Services, Transportation, and Rules. He is a native of the Washington area, actually born in Washington, D.C., as I was. And among his legislative interests has been leading efforts on the ABC subcommittee, and understands very well that what has kept many restaurants alive during the pandemic has been the ABC regulations for to-go. So for all those good reasons, it's a pleasure to welcome the senator. As Ross knows, I have to depart for another legislative call, but I expect to be back. So greetings to you, Senator. Thanks for your service and every opportunity to work with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate it. It's good to see you, and thank you, Ross, for the opportunity. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm in the Science Museum, so I'm using the AirPods, and there might be a little noise, but I had to step out of Rules Committee to come and say a few words this morning. As indicated, we are working on a number of different things to sort of capture some of the innovation that occurred during COVID, one of which is certainly sort of the ABC Drinks to Go. Other sort of more flexible things that have occurred for our restaurants, we're trying to capture those and put those into permanent code. In addition, we've also included, I've carried a bill this year that would also make permanent the opportunity for local governments or other boards and commissions to use electronic meetings only during emergencies, but at least we're codifying sort of the lessons learned to guarantee public access, viewing, and participation with all local or state or other meetings as appropriate. And so we are working very quickly. Next week is our crossover. So it's been a busy couple of weeks. It seems like months once you get right in the middle of session. And certainly one of the big considerations, and I know our Finance Committee is working on, is consideration of how to, we normally conform to the federal tax code with certain exemptions, but certainly this year with COVID and the federal loans and or grants to businesses, it is going to be extremely important on how we treat it. If we conform all of essentially the cost is about $500 million to the state in revenue. And the concern is there are certain companies that did very well, and others that did very poorly, obviously, during the economic downturn and impact from COVID. So we've got to find the right sort of approach there. I'm not on finance, but I'm trying to keep in the loop and keep on updates. They have a small subgroup that's working through those issues along with the Secretary of Finance under Governor Northam. Other quick things that I'm also working on are some adjustments to coal field tax credit, as well as data center tax credit, and working to try to promote actually Southside and Southwest Virginia. We have benefited obviously in our region from many of the data centers, and we want to try to ways to also incentivize to some of the harder hit areas of the Commonwealth. Likewise, one of the other lessons learned with our sort of incentives that we give in the state is looking at the future of telework. And I've carried the bill at the request of the administration to allow additional telework incentives to bring jobs to Virginia, as long as obviously those telework jobs reside in Virginia. And so I look forward to sort of continued collaborations as that bill moves over to the House. And one other major initiative I'm working on is also a establishment of the 988 framework of call crisis. Many of you might have seen I did some work during the special session, creating our first sort of mobile crisis response to mental health and substance use. This integrates that with the national 988 number that the FCC came out with rules on, sort of much like 911. 988 will be the new National Suicide Prevention and Behavioral Health Hotline. And so we're looking to integrate those efforts into Virginia by 2022. So we're doing that full ramp up now with my legislation, as well as a funding source to ensure that it's continued to be successful. So that's been received with strong support. And one last item real quick is I did introduce this year legislation that would amend our Constitution for an independent legislative compensation commission. Frankly, just taken out of the legislators' hands the ability to increase pay or decrease pay. Really, the basis of pay has not changed for the legislature since 1986. So I was, I think, 11 years old. And so right or wrong, I think it's time to sort of get it out of the hands of the General Assembly and have an independent compensation review of what should be appropriate. So with that, Ross, happy to take questions or, what items people are interested in or whatever format we want to move forward with.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Senator. Especially, we know you had to step out of Rules Committee for this. I've asked people to participate to please write their questions in the chat box for you real quick. One thing I had is during special session, you did introduce the bill that basically expanded what we call the First Friday bill. I just wanted to see if you could kind of expand upon that for everybody here in the room today.
Sure. Yeah, we did. We have a lot more flexibility during the special session. Which basically allows what Ross is referring to for sort of First Friday, sort of allows an ABC permit to be issued across multiple different locations, as long as it's coordinated with ABC in the locality and the local police department help to enforce it. And so there's actually additional legislation this year that would allow, in fact, it just passed Rehab and Social Services Committee that I'm also on just a few minutes ago, that would allow the local body to adopt an ordinance that would sort of allow much more greater flexibility than what I originally passed 2-3 years ago. And so it would really allow a much wider framework as long as, again, the local governing body passes an ordinance. So you'll sort of have two frameworks, one of which is up to 16 a year, and then you can sort of do it by ordinance sort of 16 plus to allow sort of one ABC permit area to be covered for multiple restaurants and vendors under that format, much like we see at First Fridays in Manassas. So again, we're trying to continue to innovate, help small businesses, and revitalize. It's important we get that foot traffic, especially coming out of COVID. So we want to be prepared if people are ready to come out again in a safe manner, and we've got the vaccine. We want to make sure all those storefronts are able to really benefit from this.
Perfect. Thank you, Senator. I think another question that we had too was, a lot of us are small business owners here at our Chamber of Commerce. I know there's some legislation on different PPE and PPE loan forgiveness / tax credits. Could you just give a briefing on how that's kind of looking and going through the General Assembly process at the moment?
Yeah, that goes back to sort of the Secretary of Finance and Finance Committee's work. They're trying to dig through to try to figure out the right and I guess best and fairest way to address it.
Mhm.
Are there windfall conditions, from very big corporations that just don't need the relief? And we certainly know that there are a ton of businesses that do need it. And so we're trying to make sure we fine tune to hone in it into those who really could use that sort of relief. So we're trying to dig into it. There's been a work group, like I said, and I don't have all the answers yet, but we'll need an answer by next Sunday, because that's when the budget, at least for the initial draft of it, has to pass the Senate and then go over to the House by the end of next week. So stay tuned.
Perfect. And then, I mean, on our end too, as you've seen in the past as a chamber member as well, you've seen that we've taken a strong stance on right to work and things like that. You mentioned that crossover is next week, which, like I said, it seems like it's been about 2 months that you guys have been in here since, with the early mornings and everything else we've been working with. It hasn't been assigned to a committee yet. So kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that on the House side, because I believe that's the only place where that piece of legislation has been put in before. So just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that piece of legislation.
Yeah, it's hard to track everything that's going on in the House. So I don't have good visibility. Sometimes, between committees, like, the other night we were in general laws till about 9:30 at night, in early morning. So it's sort of keeping track of the other chambers a little difficult. I don't have any update on that one.
Perfect. Question we got from Molly Grove from George Mason. A lot of my small business company owners have concerns with health insurance. Is there any discussion on finding solutions to do co-op for small businesses with health insurance?
Yeah, I appreciate that from Molly. This is one of the things we've struggled with the last couple of years, and specifically, for instance, for realtors.
Mhm.
We have another bill going this year. There's a bill that we worked on and got vetoed. It didn't pass. I think we've got another round of it this year, and I think we've got it worked out. So it still conforms to sort of the federal ACA, but still creates this sort of collaborative marketplace for these sort of larger associations. So this is one of the biggest hurdles, and I think we can start to figure out the co-op issues as we get this larger one through. So look forward to continuing that discussion, and certainly it certainly makes sense where you can sort of join forces with other like folks to try to leverage and purchase health insurance. So
Exactly, and that's definitely something that we've worked with the senator and the senator's office in a bipartisan manner to try to get that legislation across for the past couple of years, and we'll continue to do so. I think, Molly, real quick, with the shortness of this session, it's something I think that the chambers on our side, the senator had mentioned the realtors were kind of focused on that as well. That's something that we just decided not to really pull the trigger on this year, because a lot of it has to do with COVID and things like that. So definitely you'll see a push from the chambers next year. Senator, the next question we have is, with the move to attract more telework opportunities, will there be changes to make tax law limit that allow employees to claim deductions for office space at their homes, utility costs, et cetera? In 2020, many of us were required to work from home, but have no way to claim those deductions.
So we did restore the telework tax credit. It initially had gone away 2 years ago, and we restored it last year. So there's a provision within Virginia's tax law that does allow for a telework tax exemption or credit. I forget how the mechanism is exactly written. It's been a little bit since I looked at it, but there is a current vehicle that you can utilize. Again, I think it was very underutilized 5 years ago, and so Senator Hanger put in the bill to eliminate it. It was eliminated, and we took a look at it, I think last year or the year before, and said, no, let's restore it. This is really important, and I'm glad we did. So stay tuned and take a look at the opportunities. If there's ways we can fix it, I'll try to research and dig it up as well with my team to make sure we have enough flexibility there for people to really access it.
Perfect. And I think with that, sir, I think that is the final round of questions. I know that Melina is going to share with us how to best contact you in your office during the General Assembly session. But is there anything you wanted to leave us with today before we let you go back to the Rules Committee?
I appreciate the time, appreciate the interest. I always appreciate the expertise and feedback from everyone here within Prince William region, the Chamber, and Massachusetts Park. So please continue to give me your insight. We have so many experts which continue to inform me, educate me every single day. So it is greatly appreciated.
Perfect. Again, thank you so much, Senator, for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your time. Thank you. All right. And everybody, you can see on your screen right now, we do have the senator's contact information. And again, Melina and staff, thank you all so much for helping to coordinate. Again, everybody, with the General Assembly session and things being virtual, meetings are called pretty much at the last minute. I know that Melina and I have had conversations about loving finding out that a bill's coming up a couple hours before it really does come up before a committee meeting. So always fun. Again, thank you all so much, Melina and staff. We appreciate the senator joining us today. And I'll let you get back to work.
Thank you all so much. And just for reference, email is the best way to reach us. Our phone lines there, we normally have a district line and also a Richmond line, but the Richmond line goes to a message center and we get those collectively at the end of the day. So we like to hear more in real time. So email is the best way to reach out to our office if you have any questions, anything like that. We're absolutely happy to help. Casework, concerns about bills, you name it.
Perfect. Again, thanks so much, Melina. We appreciate it. I will take off the shared screen now. All right. Again, thank you so much. So again, everybody, as you saw, the senator did point out to everybody that it is crossover next week. So crossover, for those of you who are not aware, is when bills that are heard in, for example, the House of Delegates, all of them need to be heard pretty much by Friday in order for on Monday for them to be starting to be heard in the Senate so that those bills can kind of go through. We do have a large number of people who were not with us previously last week. So this might be a repeat of some information, but as I now try to share my screen, I will say that we are working with a joint coalition of chambers of commerce from across Virginia. Hopefully you all can still hear me as I share the screen. Right now we have, this page is the best page. So in case all of you don't know this, we have kind of tabulated the total number of bills that are being heard in the General Assembly and the total number of pieces of legislation that we are following / watching. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce has been kind enough to kind of host that as kind of a central hub for us to share with our members. So after this meeting, I'll be sending this link out to everybody as well. There are about a little over 1,200 pieces of legislation that were introduced during this session. Again, session this year is scheduled to be 30 days. We have heard that the governor is going to try to extend that through a special session that'll last about 15, 16 days. Session should be ending, if I check the calendar, it should be ending about the 12th or the 19th, but we believe it'll end up being closer to the 26th is what they're shooting for now. Of those little over 1,200 pieces of legislation, we've kind of on this page divided up into budget, broadband, a variety of different topics. We're tracking a little under 200 pieces of legislation that are being considered. So about 20 some odd % of the total pieces of legislation that were put in is something that we're going to be tracking during this General Assembly session. So just so you are aware, we are also going to provide you with our weekly update. So that is the pieces of legislation that we were looking at for the week of January 25th through January 29th. Again, I always like to start out with more of the positive side of things for everybody. So these are pieces of legislation. And again, this isn't everything, but this is kind of the major topics that I feel that you guys would like to hear about. Again, please hold questions to the end. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. So these are pieces of legislation that we supported. The first one, HB 2161 and SB 1410, bills that active duty military or military spouses prohibited discrimination in public accommodations. Basically what this piece of legislation does is prohibits the discrimination for those who are connected to serving the country. Currently in Virginia, there are some regulations out there that allow for leasings and things like that to kind of be, and hiring practices to be kind of discriminatory towards active duty military and their spouses. So this is a piece of legislation that we have worked with 2 sponsors on, one of them being our very own Senator John Bell and Delegate Tran from across the Occoquan over in Fairfax County. To give you an update on where it is right now, in the House, it passed the General Laws Full Committee on a vote of 20-0, and in the Senate, it passed their General Laws 13-0, and that is headed to both floors. And I will keep you guys updated on that piece of legislation next week, those pieces of legislation next week. SB 1164 and HB 2173, advanced recycling. So what this piece of legislation did was about a year or 2 ago, Virginia kind of approved the use of advanced recycling to reuse plastics as we kind of move into this more greener economy that people are pushing. This is a good piece of legislation that recycles plastics mainly and kind of makes them as a category as more of a manufacturing currently this piece. So what we're doing is this bill is currently both in the House and the Senate, and they've been referred to the agriculture committees of both of those. They're both awaiting hearings. Again, with crossover coming up this week, we should be able to provide you a better update this coming Friday. Hopefully on Friday. Sometimes that meeting goes a lot later just because they have to get all those bills passed and done through by the end of the week. So hopefully we will have an update on this for you on how this bill is looking. This is a great piece of legislation to really push kind of a green initiative in Virginia. So we will keep you posted on this. SB 1344 was a piece of legislation that was given to us through the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. They had requested this, and of course, we always partner with them as best we can because they're promoting a better economy here in Virginia and bringing in jobs. It is currently in the Senate, on the Senate floor, passed the first reading by a vote of 38-0. We do believe that this will end up flying through, but I will keep you all posted. SB 1394, income tax exclusion for paycheck protection plan loan forgiveness. Again, this is a income tax inclusion for paycheck protection loan forgiveness. Basically establishes the income tax exclusion for those of you who receive coronavirus aid relief or economic securities, the CARES Act, PPP funding, and it would be available starting in the tax year 2020. No taxpayer shall be denied or otherwise allowable deductions for any reason of exclusion. Definitely think that this is a piece of legislation that'll definitely help our small businesses, well, basically all businesses here in Virginia. So that has currently been re-referred to the Senate Committee on Finance and Appropriations, and we have strongly supported this piece of legislation for our small businesses. So we will keep you posted on that as well. SB 1405 and HB 2204, the Get Skilled, Get a Job, and Give Back Fund. This is a governor's initiative to work with our community college systems to establish the quote G3 program for the purpose of providing financial assistance and a fund for certain low and middle income Virginian students. It did pass the House 93-7 and has been re-referred to the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. I believe, from what I've been told, it will end up passing on the Senate floor. Again, we're watching this piece of legislation. HB 1423 and SB 1425. I added an extra 2 in there when I made this presentation. And HB 2273, the data center sales and use tax exemption. This is a piece of legislation that Senator McPike did reference in his presentation to us. He was the Senate sponsor of the bill. There was another senator as well, as you can see from this. They joined the bills together, kind of consolidated them under SB 1423. This is a bill that just extends the tax exemption for data centers and kind of continues to make not only Prince William County and Loudoun, but also Virginia as a whole more beneficial towards data centers, so we can continue to attract them here to the Commonwealth, not just up here, but also to stabilize the economy in Southwest Virginia and things like that. That bill was passed on its first reading 38-0 in the Senate. We will keep you posted on that as it goes through. We have not received an update on the House. It did pass to the House Finance Committee, I believe, yesterday morning around 7 a.m. So I can keep you all posted on that next week. And then, of course, the higher level bills that we opposed this week. SB 1180, you guys will be receiving a action alert email on this one. This is going to the Senate floor and will be heard early next week. This allows for civil law, class action lawsuits, makes the process easier here in Virginia. We had our Government Affairs Committee review this piece of legislation, and we worked with the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. It does make it easier to create class action lawsuits. We believe this will have a negative impact on businesses. It did pass through the Senate Judiciary Committee on a party line voted 9-4. We have a few targeted senators that represent Prince William, Manassas, and Manassas Park that will be voting on this next week in the Senate floor. So we'll be keeping you all posted with that, more than likely sending out a action alert to everybody this coming weekend. And we ask you to please be engaged in that process. HB 2016 paid family leave and medical leave program through the Employment Commission. This is a piece of legislation that we opposed in Commerce and Labor Committee. Last week, its Senate companion bill was heard, and we were able to get that piece of legislation referred up to Senate Finance and Appropriations, where I believe it was subsequently killed. I'd have to verify that again for you, or laid on the table. Apologies, the official terms need to be used. This bill with same exact path has been referred to House Appropriations Committee for review. And then HB 2228, workers' compensation for repetitive and substances physical stressors. This is a piece of legislation that was introduced by Delegate Guzman here from Prince William County. We got this piece of legislation again through a team effort with the Virginia Chamber of Commerce and other trade associations, referred up to the House Appropriations Committee for review. And that is the final bill for the week that we were opposing. Going back to everybody here today, if there's anything you'd like to discuss with us today, questions, comments, concerns, now is the opportunity. And again, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. So please ask away. If I don't have the answer, I can point you in the right direction, or I can get you the answer hopefully by close of business today. So Donna, what we have, so of the large piece of legislation of that list that I showed you all from the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, those are the bills we are watching. We as a group with those other chambers of commerce kind of come in together and kind of pick the whole, we take the mentality of, will this help businesses or will this hurt businesses approach? And that's kind of where we fall on the support opposed. Our board of directors has a government affairs committee that reviews pieces of legislation that we kind of have up in the air. If you'd like, I can get you, I can talk to you offline and we can have a conversation about that as well too, if you'd like to. So I can definitely do that. If you could just send me a private message and I can get that information and I can reach out to you later this afternoon about how that process works. The members are from the board of directors, but yes, we do bring in advisory groups from all chamber members on specific pieces of legislation that impact industry. So we can definitely do that for you. Yes, Molly, we can definitely get you the presentation. And what we'll do also is, again, this is being recorded. So what we can do for everybody is once we are done, this is being stored on the amazing cloud. And what we'll do is Nicole will actually be reaching out to everybody with a link to the YouTube video for this. And then you can watch it there. I do have the support oppose presentation that I gave. I can send that out to everybody as well too. Any further questions? I will say too, we do have Glenn Loop, who is the county's legislative liaison. He will be, I believe, we're hoping he will be our speaker depending on what happens next week with bills and committees and things like that. But Glenn, did you want to pop on and say anything for the group?
Well, multitasking is getting more difficult because I'm trying to listen to what they're about to do on qualified immunity, which is pretty important.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
As of now, yes, I'll be with you, next Friday?
Yes, sir.
At noon. That's the game plan right now. If the floods don't rise and the General Assembly doesn't get in the way of it, but that's the plan. And Ross, if you don't mind, send me a list of issues that you think would be of particular attention to the group, and then I'll highlight more on the types of legislation that would directly impact the functions of local government.
Perfect. We can definitely do that. Absolutely.
I'll talk about economic development and infrastructure and those types of items that I know would be of specific interest, I think, as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Don. We really appreciate it.
Back to qualified immunity. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. Thank you. And yes, I can definitely share that. Yes. All right. Again, final call for questions, comments, concerns. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. And I will see you all next week. Or if I promise to call you, I will do that here in a little bit. Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of the day.